Have you ever felt so exposed that even your own skin felt foreign? That's how I felt that night. My heart was pounding, my palms were sweaty, and every nerve in my body screamed at me to run, just turn around and leave before it was too late. But I didn't. And what happened next changed everything. Picture this, a small, cozy room bathed in soft, golden light from a single lamp on the bedside table. The faint hum of music played somewhere in the background, barely audible but comforting nonetheless. It should have been perfect, a safe space, a moment to let go, but instead, I felt completely out of place. Why? Because for the first time, I was about to be truly vulnerable with someone else. And that terrified me. But here's the thing, vulnerability isn't something we talk about enough when it comes to intimacy. Whether you're part of the LGBTQ+ community or not, whether you identify as gay, bi, pan, or anything in between, there's always this unspoken pressure to look a certain way, act a certain way, or feel confident all the time. Spoiler alert, none of us do. Not really. In this video, you'll hear a story that dives deep into those raw emotions, the fear, the doubt, and ultimately, the beauty of being seen for who you truly are. This isn't just another romantic tale, it's a journey through self-discovery, acceptance, and learning to trust yourself, and someone else, when it feels impossible. By the end of this video, you'll understand why moments like these shape us in ways we never expect. You might even find pieces of your own story woven into mine. So if you've ever struggled with feeling not enough, or if you simply love stories that remind you of the power of human connection, stick around. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Before we dive deeper, welcome to our channel. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button and join our growing community of people who believe in celebrating love, authenticity, and the courage it takes to be ourselves. Now, let's get back to the story, and uncover why I was so nervous about being naked, and how he made me feel wanted. To understand why I felt so exposed that night, you need to know where it all began. My insecurities didn't just appear out of nowhere, they were years in the making, shaped by moments that left their mark on me. And as much as I wanted to believe I was over them, they had a way of creeping back when I least expected. Growing up, I always struggled with how I saw myself. Society has this unspoken checklist for what makes someone desirable: toned muscles, flawless skin, confidence that fills the room. But me, I never quite fit into that mold. In high school, I remember standing in front of the mirror after gym class, staring at my reflection and thinking, why can't I look like everyone else? It wasn't vanity, it was fear. Fear that no one would ever see past my imperfections. Things only got worse when I started exploring who I was romantically. Being gay already felt like carrying an invisible weight, knowing that some people wouldn't accept me for who I am. But then there was the added pressure to measure up in every other way. Early experiences weren't kind to me. There was this one guy the first liked, the first person I thought might actually care about me beyond friendship. We went on a few dates, but when things got close to becoming more serious, he pulled away. He said something vague about needing time, but later, through mutual friends, I found out the real reason: he didn't think I was attractive enough. That comment stayed with me for years, buried deep but still hurting. Every time I looked in the mirror, I heard his voice echoing in my head. Even outside of romance, everyday interactions chipped away at my confidence. Social media didn't help either. Scrolling through pictures of influencers with perfect bodies or couples posing happily together made me feel smaller and smaller. I told myself I didn't care, that I didn't need validation from anyone, but inside, I craved it. I wanted to feel beautiful, worthy, loved. Yet the louder those voices became, the ones telling me I wasn't good enough, the harder it was to silence them. And then there were the practical fears. This wasn't just about self-esteem, it was about experience too. Or rather, the lack of it. Up until that point, I'd never been in a situation like the one I found myself in that night. Sure, I'd kissed people before, held hands, shared quiet moments under the stars. But intimacy, real, raw vulnerability, that was uncharted territory for me. The idea of being completely exposed, not just physically, but emotionally, felt terrifying. What if I messed up? What if I disappointed him? What if he saw me for who I really was and decided I wasn't worth it? All those doubts came rushing back the moment he looked at me that night. His gaze wasn't judgmental, in fact, it was the opposite, but it still triggered something primal in me. All the years of feeling inadequate, of comparing myself to others, of bracing myself for rejection, they hit me like a tidal wave. For a split second, I thought about running. Turning around, leaving, pretending none of this had happened. But instead, I stayed. Because despite everything, there was something about him that made me want to try. So who was he? How did he manage to break through walls I'd spent years building? Let's talk about him next, and why meeting him changed not just that night, but my entire perspective on love and acceptance. He was different. From the very first moment I met him, I could tell he wasn't like anyone else I'd ever known. It wasn't just his appearance, though yes, he had this quiet charm about him, with soft features and eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies within them, but it was more than that. It was how he carried himself, calm, gentle, confident without being overbearing. Around him, the world felt quieter, steadier, as if nothing bad could happen while he was near. The first thing I noticed was his voice. Deep but soothing, like the hum of a distant melody you can't quite place but instantly find comforting. When he spoke, it wasn't rushed or forced, every word felt deliberate, thoughtful, like he genuinely cared about what came out of his mouth, and who it reached. Even the simplest things sounded poetic when he said them. Once, during an awkward silence between us, he laughed, a low, warm chuckle, and it hit me then how rare it was to hear laughter that didn't mock or belittle, but instead invited you in. His laugh was like sunlight breaking through clouds, I thought later, trying to put it into words. Then there was his smile. Not flashy or attention-seeking, but genuine. The kind that crinkled at the corners of his eyes and made you believe everything would be okay, even if only for a moment longer. He smiled often, too, not because he was trying to impress anyone, but because joy seemed natural to him. And yet, despite all that warmth, there was a depth to him, a quiet strength that told me he understood pain, loss, struggle. Maybe that's why he felt so safe to me. He knew what it meant to hurt, and somehow, that made him more real. What struck me most, though, was how present he always was. In today's world, where everyone is distracted by their phones or lost in their own thoughts, he gave his full attention. If I hesitated mid-sentence, searching for the right words, he waited patiently, never rushing me, never making me feel small for stumbling. His gaze wasn't invasive, it was steady, grounding, like he saw me not as some idealized version of myself, but as me. Flaws and all. No one had ever looked at me like that before, not friends, not family, certainly not romantic interests. Most people either tried too hard to fix me or dismissed my insecurities altogether. But him, he listened, really listened, and in doing so, he made me feel safe in ways I couldn't explain. There were little moments that stood out, too. Like the time we sat together on a park bench, watching leaves swirl in the autumn breeze. He leaned back, arms stretched across the top of the bench, completely at ease. For a second, I envied his comfort in his own skin. Then he turned to me and asked, "What are you thinking about?" Just like that, no pretense, no hidden agenda. Only curiosity. When I admitted I was worried about something trivial, whether my hair looked okay, he tilted his head slightly, smirked, and said, "You look fine." Better than fine. And somehow, absurdly, I believed him. But the moment that truly changed everything happened later that night, the same night I felt so exposed, so terrified of being seen. We were sitting close, closer than we'd ever been, and the air around us buzzed with unspoken tension. My hands trembled, my breath hitched, and I braced myself for judgment. Instead, he reached out and touched my hand. Just lightly, fingertips brushing against mine, but it was enough. Enough to stop the racing thoughts in my head. Enough to make me pause and take a breath. Something shifted inside me in that instant, a crack forming in the walls I'd built, letting in a sliver of light. That touch was the beginning. The start of something I hadn't dared to hope for, acceptance. Real, honest acceptance, not the kind that comes with conditions or expectations, but the kind that says, "You are enough exactly as you are." And from that moment on, I began to let go. Now, let's talk about what happened next, the turning point where vulnerability stopped feeling like a weakness and started feeling like freedom. It's hard to describe the weight of that moment, the split second where everything feels like it's hanging in the balance. My heart was racing, my chest tight, and every instinct screaming at me to stop, to pull back, to protect myself. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of music playing somewhere far away, almost drowned out by the sound of my own thoughts. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, my hands trembling as they hovered over the edge of my shirt. This was it, the point of no return. And yet, all I wanted to do was run. He must have sensed my hesitation because he reached out again, his fingers brushing mine ever so gently. "You don't have to rush," he said softly, his voice steady and calm, like a lifeline pulling me back from the edge of panic. "We're here together." Those words should have been simple, but they hit me like a tidal wave. Together. As if this wasn't just about me giving something of myself, it was about us sharing something real. Still, doubt clawed at the edges of my mind. What if he sees me and decides I'm not enough? What if he laughs, or worse, pretends everything's fine when it's not? My inner critic was relentless, whispering cruel things I'd heard before, not just from others but from myself. I wanted to run away, to disappear into the safety of clothes and walls and silence. But his gaze held me still. It wasn't demanding or impatient, it was soft, steady, unwavering. Like he already knew the battle raging inside me and wasn't going anywhere until I won. I took a shaky breath, forcing myself to focus on the present instead of spiraling into worst-case scenarios. His presence filled the space between us, not overwhelming, but grounding. Slowly, painfully slowly, I began to peel off my shirt. Each movement felt deliberate, like stepping onto thin ice that might crack at any moment. The fabric slipped past my shoulders, exposing skin I'd spent years hiding even from myself. My arms instinctively crossed over my chest, shielding what I saw as flaws, stretch marks, scars, imperfections I'd been conditioned to hate. "You're beautiful," he murmured, breaking the silence. At first, I thought I'd imagined it. Beautiful. Me. But then he leaned closer, his hand reaching for mine, prying my fingers away from their defensive position. "Don't hide," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not from me." His touch was electric, sending warmth through places I didn't realize had gone cold. For a moment, I froze, caught between the urge to cover up again and the strange, foreign desire to let him see, to trust him with pieces of myself I'd kept locked away. My mind raced, torn between fear and hope. What if he's lying? What if this is just pity disguised as kindness? But looking into his eyes, I couldn't find an ounce of dishonesty. All I saw was sincerity, patience, acceptance. And then it happened. That one moment when everything shifted. I looked down, at my bare skin, at the body I'd always viewed as inadequate, and for the first time, I didn't see flaws staring back at me. Instead, I saw someone worthy of love. Someone who deserved to be seen, touched, cherished. Tears welled up in my eyes, unbidden but unavoidable. Not tears of sadness, but of relief. Of freedom. Years of self-loathing melted away under the weight of his gaze, replaced by a quiet certainty, maybe I am enough. The tension in the room dissolved, replaced by something softer, warmer. He didn't push, didn't rush. Instead, he simply held me, his arms wrapping around me like a cocoon, protecting me from the voices that used to haunt me. In that embrace, I finally understood what acceptance truly meant. It wasn't about erasing imperfections or pretending they didn't exist. It was about being seen fully, with all your cracks and rough edges, and loved anyway. That night changed me in ways I couldn't have anticipated. Letting go of fear, even for just a moment, opened doors I didn't know were closed. Doors to self-acceptance, to trust, to believing that maybe, just maybe, I was worth loving exactly as I was. But the story doesn't end there. Because what happens after you take that leap of faith? How does that kind of acceptance shape the way you see yourself, and the world around you? Let's talk about the aftermath, and how that single moment rippled through the rest of my life. When it was over, I didn't feel the way I thought I would. There was no crushing regret, no overwhelming shame, just a quiet calm that settled over me like a soft blanket. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't running from myself. The relief was almost surreal, as if a weight I'd been carrying for years had finally lifted. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, and let myself breathe. Really breathe. Not the shallow, panicked breaths I'd grown accustomed to, but deep, steady ones that filled my lungs completely. Gratitude washed over me in waves. Gratitude for him, for his patience, his kindness, his ability to see me when I couldn't see myself. But also gratitude for me. For finding the courage to take that leap, even though every fiber of my being had screamed at me not to. It wasn't easy, nothing worth doing ever is, but it was worth it. In that moment, I realized something profound. Intimacy isn't just physical. It's emotional, too. Maybe even more so. It's about letting someone into your world, the messy, imperfect parts you try so hard to hide, and trusting them to stay. That realization changed everything. Before that night, I'd always thought vulnerability was a weakness. Something to be ashamed of. Something to avoid at all costs. But lying there, basking in the aftermath of what had happened, I understood the truth. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength. It takes immense courage to open yourself up to someone else, to risk rejection or judgment or pain. And yet, without vulnerability, there can be no real connection. No love, no trust. I started to reflect on how this experience had shifted my perspective, not just about relationships but about myself. For so long, I'd chased perfection, thinking that if I could just look a certain way or act a certain way, people would accept me. But that night taught me something different. Trust matters more than perfection. Love isn't about finding someone who thinks you're flawless, it's about finding someone who loves you despite your flaws, or maybe even because of them. Someone who sees the cracks in your armor and chooses to hold you anyway. Looking back, I realized how much energy I'd wasted trying to protect myself from being hurt. I'd built walls so high and thick that they kept out not only pain but also joy, connection, and love. That night, those walls came crumbling down, not all at once, but enough to let light flood in. Enough to remind me that hiding doesn't keep you safe, it keeps you stuck. Stuck in fear, stuck in self-doubt, stuck in a version of yourself that isn't authentic. One of the biggest lessons I took away from that experience was the importance of showing up, for others, yes, but especially for yourself. You can't expect someone else to love you fully if you don't love yourself first. That doesn't mean you have to wake up every day feeling confident or perfect. It means accepting that you're human, that you'll make mistakes, that you'll have moments of doubt and insecurity, and still choosing to believe you're worthy of love anyway. That's what he did for me that night. He showed me that I didn't have to earn his love. I didn't have to prove anything. All I had to do was show up. By the time morning came, I felt lighter. Like I'd shed layers of fear and shame I didn't even realize I'd been wearing. I looked in the mirror and saw someone new staring back at me. Someone stronger, braver, freer. Someone who knew that scars and imperfections weren't things to hide. They were proof of survival, of growth, of life. That night, I stopped hiding, not just from him, but from myself. But this story isn't just about me. It's about all of us. About the fears we carry, the walls we build, and the moments that remind us why taking risks is worth it. Because while my journey might be unique to me, the lessons I learned are universal. They speak to something bigger than one person's experience. They speak to the power of acceptance, trust, and love. So now, let's zoom out a little. Let's talk about the broader themes of this story, the truths it reveals about vulnerability, relationships, and self-worth. These are lessons anyone can apply to their own lives, no matter where they are on their journey. Because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing: to feel seen, to feel loved, and to know we're enough exactly as we are. This story might seem personal, but its lessons are universal. At its core, it's about the struggles we all face. Whether you're part of the LGBTQ+ community, navigating relationships, or simply trying to figure out who you are in a world that often tells you to be someone else. Let's break down what this journey teaches us and why it matters, not just for me, but for everyone. First, there's the undeniable importance of self-acceptance. We live in a society obsessed with perfection, perfect bodies, perfect lives, perfect relationships. But here's the truth: perfection doesn't exist. And chasing it only leaves us feeling hollow. What does exist is authenticity, the messy, beautiful, unfiltered version of ourselves. The version that doesn't hide behind masks or try to fit into boxes created by others. Self-acceptance isn't easy. It requires confronting fears, unpacking insecurities, and learning to see yourself through eyes of compassion rather than criticism. But when you do, something incredible happens: you free yourself. You stop waiting for someone else to validate you because you've already given yourself permission to take up space, to exist exactly as you are. Then there's the role of kindness and patience in building trust. Think about how powerful those two qualities were in my story. His gentle reassurance, his willingness to wait without judgment, it wasn't just comforting, it was transformative. Trust doesn't happen overnight. It's built slowly, brick by brick, through small acts of kindness and consistent presence. Whether you're talking about romantic relationships, friendships, or even your relationship with yourself, patience is key. People don't open up to those who rush them or dismiss their fears. They open up to those who listen, who give them time, who make them feel safe. So if you want to build deeper connections, with others or with yourself, start with kindness. Start with patience. Another critical theme is the need to break free from societal expectations. Society has a way of dictating who we should be, how we should look, and what we should value. For so long, I let those external pressures shape how I saw myself. I believed the lies, that I had to meet certain standards to be loved, to be accepted. But that night taught me otherwise. True love, whether from another person or from within, doesn't come with conditions. It doesn't demand you change or conform. It meets you where you are and says, you are enough. Breaking free from societal norms isn't always easy. It means challenging deeply ingrained beliefs and standing firm in your truth, even when the world pushes back. But the reward is worth it: freedom. Freedom to live authentically, without apology. These lessons aren't unique to my experience, they resonate with real-life struggles many people face every day. Maybe you've felt pressured to look a certain way or act a certain way to earn someone's approval. Maybe you've doubted your worth because of rejection or comparison. Or maybe you've struggled to trust yourself or others after being hurt. Whatever your story, know this: you're not alone. These feelings are human, but they don't define you. You get to decide how much power you give them, and whether you let them hold you back or push you forward. That's why I encourage you to embrace your authentic self. Stop hiding. Stop shrinking. The world needs more people willing to show up as they are, flaws and all. When you do, you inspire others to do the same. Vulnerability is contagious in the best possible way. One brave act can ripple outward, touching lives you may never even meet. If this story resonates with you, if it reminds you of your own journey or gives you hope for the future, I want you to share it. Share it with someone who might need to hear these words today. Someone who feels invisible, unworthy, or afraid to be themselves. Because sometimes, all it takes is one moment, one story, one voice saying, "You matter," to change everything. Now, let's bring this full circle. Let's end where we began, with love, acceptance, and the courage to believe in ourselves. Because no matter where you are on your journey, you deserve to feel seen. You deserve to feel loved. And most importantly, you deserve to know that you're enough exactly as you are. So, what's the key message of this story? It's simple but profound. Love isn't about changing who you are, it's about finding someone who loves you exactly as you are. That night taught me that real connection doesn't come from hiding or pretending or trying to be better. It comes from showing up, fully, honestly, vulnerably, and trusting that the right person will see your flaws not as something to fix, but as part of what makes you uniquely beautiful. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video and hear my story. If it resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments, what does feeling wanted mean to you? How has vulnerability shaped your relationships or your journey towards self-acceptance? Your stories matter, and sharing them might just inspire someone else who needs to hear they're not alone. Before we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final thought. Sometimes, all it takes is one person to make us believe we're worth loving. Whether that person is a partner, a friend, or even yourself, their belief in you can light up even the darkest corners of doubt. And once you've felt that kind of love, the unconditional, no strings attached kind, it changes you. It gives you permission to step into your truth, to stop running from yourself, and to start embracing who you are. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more stories about love, acceptance, and the courage it takes to live authentically. Every new subscriber helps us reach more people with messages like this one, so thank you for supporting what we do here. And remember, you are worthy. You are enough. No matter where you are on your journey, there's beauty in your story, and there's power in your vulnerability. So keep showing up, keep believing in yourself, and never underestimate the impact one moment of honesty, one act of kindness, or one person's love can have on your life. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.